I welcome you to 360 out of 360 in NEET Bio within 250 days series, and today we are going to talk about a very important topic, that is menstrual cycle, and it comes in human reproduction chapter. So I don't want to waste any bit of your time. Let's just get in over here. You can see what? You can see nothing. Yeah, so you can see the things that I made in the previous class, and if by chance you have missed any of these notes, you can join our WhatsApp channel, and there you will get the PDF for everything. And what did we study in the previous session? We studied about oogenesis. What was oogenesis, children? It is the formation of the female gamete. Oogenesis, right? So oo basically means oocyte or ovum, and genesis means formation. So it was we were talking about the formation of the ovum, and we particularly stopped at this particular stage, which is what? Graphian follicle stage. What do you mean by that? Basically, a cell that is going to form the ovum is stuck over here in between. And who is surrounding the cell? It is another cell which is known as what? A set of cells which are known as what? Granulosa cells. So together, our main guy which will be making the oocyte, and what do you call this famous personality as? You call this famous personality as oocyte. So secondary oocyte is there. Surrounding it, what do we have? Granulosa cells, and this particular whole structure, what do you call? Graphian follicle. Okay. Now, as I said, the follicles, they mature, and they reach at this particular stage, which is the last stage. Now, during ovulation, what happens? The granulosa follicles, it open up, burst up, and this particular guy, that is the secondary oocyte, slowly moves out. Yeah, and this process is known as what? Ovulation. Now, for the time being, we assume that this is what? The female gamete. But has it completed its division? No, it has not completed its division, and that was my question in the previous lecture. The question was, meiotic division of the secondary oocyte is completed when? So you had these many options, and I'm pretty sure if you heard the lecture carefully, you would have got the answer as well. Well, if you didn't know the answer, if you were not able to solve, not worry, I am here to help you out. So let's solve it. So meiotic division of the secondary oocyte is completed at the time of fusion of a sperm with an ovum, I told you. So secondary oocyte, which is there, which is captured in the Graphian follicle, right? Yeah. This is stuck in a phase which is known as metaphase 2. And after this, what do we have? We have anaphase, we have telophase and everything. After this, the secondary oocyte finally divides to give two cells. One is ovum and the next one is the second polar body. Do we need this? No. Do we need this? Yes. This is the main personality, right, that we have over here. So this process, that is this division, will occur. This meiotic division will be completed when? At the time of fusion of sperm with an ovum, that is during fertilization. I hope this is clear. This came in NEET 2020, not before that. So do not write anything else that it happened prior to ovulation. No, nothing, it cannot happen. So I know the children who have not attended the class and have just come over here to listen to menstrual cycle, you might be having a small worry that what is ma'am saying. But children, I explained it very clearly in the previous session, and you can just have just use 40 minutes of your time or 30 minutes of your time and put in 2x speed and just listen to it. I am pretty sure you will understand each and everything of oogenesis. Now today, let's start something from fresh, that is, we will talk about menstrual cycle. So who have joined for menstrual cycle? You have your things over here. Let's read your NCERT a little bit and then we will explain it one by one. Yeah. So the reproductive cycle in the female primates. Primates as in what? Monkeys, apes, human beings are primates. We have a big brain, okay, in comparison to our body. So yes, we are known as primates, and there are non-primates also. Who are non-primates? The dogs, the cats and everything, they come under non-primates. So basically, okay, the reproductive cycle of the female primates, you have a specific name. What do you call this? Menstrual cycle. What is it? Menstrual cycle. So you might be thinking, what is about non-primates? Non-primates have estrous cycle. What is it? Estrous cycle. Okay, that is something different. Now over here, the first menstruation begins at puberty and is called menarche. What do you call it? Menarche. So you need to remember these very small facts. Okay, what is a cycle known as? Reproductive cycle. It is known as menstrual cycle. Okay, menstrual cycle. Now the second thing, the first time The first time when someone has menstruation, what do you call this? As menarche. Okay. Now I'll tell you, since it is already, we are already talking about the first thing, so we can talk about the last time also. So when a woman reaches a stage when the menstruation ends, what do you call this? When you're pausing something, it is known as menopause. So the cycle is menstrual cycle. The first time it is menarche, it is E, okay, and the last time it is menopause. Fine. Now, what is the length or the duration of this particular cycle that we are talking about? In human females, menstruation is repeated at an average interval of 28 to 29 days. That means the cycle is of 28 to 29 days. So after this days, again, what menstruation, or in basic language we say periods, it occurs. The shedding of blood occurs. So after every 28 days, the shedding of the blood will be occurring. And the cycle of events starting from one menstruation till the next one is known as menstrual cycle. So this is something that I was saying. That is, menstruation is what? Basically, what? Shedding of blood, okay, from the uterus. So the time gap between one menstruation and the second menstruation, it will be having cycle of events. Agree? There will be so many events, that is, for once it will shed down, then something new again will be forming, some new layer will be forming. So whole this cycle in total, what do you call this particular cycle as? You call this particular cycle as menstrual cycle. And what is the duration? Almost 28 to 29 days. Am I clear with this? Okay. One ovum is released during the middle of each menstrual cycle. One more piece of information that they are giving you is, there is one ovum, okay. There is one ovum that is released in between each cycle. Okay, so in between, if you say, so I think 28, if you half it, it's 14th day. Okay, and on the 14th day, there will be some ovulation happening. What is ovulation, children? Ovulation means from the Graafian follicle, the female gamete will be coming out. So it is entirely not made female gamete, but still we say it as it is the female gamete. It is a secondary oocyte, right? So it comes out. It comes out. Okay. I hope this is clear. So in total, first time menarche, last time menopause, the whole cycle, menstrual cycle. Okay, and how many days? 28 to 29 days. The middle of it, what happens? Ovulation happens. What is ovulation? The Graafian follicles burst open and the ovum comes out. Basically, secondary oocyte comes out. Is it clear? Now we'll go on to the next detail. So from here starts our journey of menstrual cycle in real. So you know, and I also know, that there is some region in our brain which is known as what? Hypothalamus over here. Okay. So this hypothalamus, no, this guy and anterior pituitary guy are best friends. Are what? Best friends. Now, when I say best friends, okay, they listen to each other. So over here, hypothalamus releases a certain set of hormones which you call as gonadotrophin, releasing hormones. What is it? Gonadotropin releasing hormones. With love I call it GnRH. Okay. Now hypothalamus releases it and it goes and acts on anterior pituitary. So pituitary gland has two lobes. Again, pituitary is somewhere here only. Okay, and it has two lobes, anterior and posterior. So this guy is going and acting on the anterior pituitary glands, and it is saying, hey, go, release all the gonadotropins that you have. Gonadotropins means those hormones which will be acting on the gonads. What is the gonads? Basically ovary and the testis. These are the gonads where the gametes will be formed. So what is happening? Hypothalamus tells to anterior pituitary say, hey, all the gonadotropins, please release. Get released. So over here, what all gonadotropins do we have? We have LH, that is one, and FSH, that is the next one. Okay. LH stands for luteinizing hormone. The role of it you will get to know really soon. FSH stands for follicle stimulating hormone. As the name suggests, it is going to stimulate the follicle. It is going to make the follicles mature. Okay, so from primary will change to secondary will change to tertiary, from tertiary it will go to Graafian follicle. So this particular growth of the follicle is managed by this particular hormone, not enzyme, sorry, it is hormone. And luteinizing hormone, it has the sole function. I know it has so many functions, but yes, the major function, before even getting into the topic, I'll say it's ovulation. It's ovulation, so that you do not forget ever. Okay. So I think I don't need to repeat it. Hypothalamus release what? Gonadotropin releasing hormone, that is GnRH. It acts on the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary now listens to them and releases the gonadotropins, okay, that they were asking to release. So now LH and FSH is released. LH is the luteinizing hormone, FSH is the follicle stimulating hormone. I hope until here it's clear. Now follicle stimulating hormones, what do? They make the follicles grow and mature, okay. Now, the follicle stimulating hormone goes and acts on the ovary. In the ovary, what do we have? We have the follicles. Now, the follicles, as I said, will mature. Obviously, they will mature. That is, they grow primary, secondary, tertiary, and like that. Now, at one point of time, these mature follicles, okay, whenever this process happens, that is, when they are maturing, at this particular point of time, they are releasing another hormone which you call as estrogen or estrogen. Will you forget this? This is very important. What is happening? The follicles itself, they are releasing what? Estrogen. And now estrogen is going to act on uterus and say, hey uterus, the amount of blood that is shut down, please make that layer again. We need that layer again. Why does the uterus need that layer again? If this is the uterus, why does it need the layer again over here? Because if fertilization will happen, the egg and the sperm will fuse, the zygote will be formed, the zygote forms the embryo which will come here, it will reside here and it will grow into what? The fetus later on. So over here it needs every point of nourishment, right? So this particular layer is for nourishment. What is it? Endometrial layer. So basically this estrogen is going and telling the uterus, please form the endometrial layer. When is it happening? When the follicles, they are basically maturing at this point of time and the follicles are growing. Okay, I hope it is clear. This is the basic piece of information. If you do not understand this thing, you won't understand the menstrual cycle. So I hope this is clear. Now I'll tell you one more thing that is also very important. That is, when you spoke about estrogen or estrogen, I told that they go and act on the uterus and make the layer thicken, that is the endometrium layer, which is the innermost layer, thickened, right? Now there's a problem with estrogen. I can say negative problem and a positive problem. So when estrogen is in moderate amount, children, when estrogen is released in moderate amount, okay, they go and say that, hey FSH and LH, please stop working. We do not need your help, please stop working. Okay. Now, when estrogen is in higher level, it is released in high level, what happens? This changes into something very positive. It says, hey FSH, and mainly also I'll write LH first, okay. It says, hey LH and FSH, please increase your amount. So this is kind of tricky, but it is very useful piece of information. What happens? When estrogen is in moderate amount, it will go and say, FSH and LH, please stop working, okay. Now, or just decrease your amount, okay. Now, when it is in high amount, what happens? It goes and says, LH and FSH, please increase your amount of secretion that is being happening. So this is a common easy thing that you need to remember. You can take a screenshot of this if you want, but this is something that we will be needing over there when we talk about the cycle. So we were here. So basically what is happening, the estrogen that is being formed, it is telling, hey, follicle stimulating hormone, stop it. You don't need to make the follicles mature now, please stop it. That is the thing. So who made this possible? That guy only, he's saying that please stop it. So I hope you are able to understand. Okay. Now let's start the cycle. So over here, first thing that you need to draw is, you need to make a column like this. Okay. And I'll say use the longitudinal way over there. Okay. Over here, you need the first column where you wrote FS and LH, which are the gonadotropins, which are being released by what? Pituitary gland, anterior pituitary. Now we have follicles as well. Then we have two hormones. Estrogen, you might have already heard about that, and progesterone. She is also there. Okay, progesterone is a very powerful hormone that we have, and it's also there. Now at the lower part, I am writing uterus and the endometrium layer. Okay, so first phase of the cycle is menstrual phase. Okay, where the menstruation happens. What happens during menstruation? As I already told you, the female had the periods, where the blood layer that was formed, okay, the thickened endometrium that was formed, it is now shedding down. When this particular thing is happening, the level of progesterone and estrogen is not that good, it is slow only, which is why this happens. I'll come to that. So as of now, forget about this thing. Come to this. When this happens, simultaneously FSH and LH becomes active, and what do? They say, hey follicle, the primary follicle, please go mature, go grow into what? Secondary and tertiary follicles. Now what happens when the FSH comes and acts on it? There will be so many follicles around. It's not like one follicle is there. There are so many follicles, 60 to 80,000 primary follicles are there. Obviously, at least 30-20 of them could be, 15 to 20 of them could be, getting mature at this point of time, right? So FSH acts on them and tells them, please follicles, please convert and form into what? Your secondary or tertiary and things that happen. Now when the follicles are being made, as they grow, what happens? There will be estrogen that will be released. What will happen? The estrogen will be released. Now when estrogen is released, and when I say that it is in moderate amount that it is released, what will happen? Will it tell the FSH to stop working? Yes. It will go and act and say that, hey FSH and LH, please stop working. Now at this point of time, what happens? You forget the inhibin and everything that is mentioned over there. You forget the inhibin and everything that is mentioned. I will tell about that. So as of now, what is happening? Menstrual cycle is happening. Okay, the menstruation is happening. The endometrial layer, it shut down. Okay. At this point of time, the FSH and LH is more. Okay. And what are they doing? They are telling the follicles to grow and mature. But simultaneously, there will be so many follicles that will be maturing. But we just want one, because we just want one ovum, right? So we just want one of them to actually be the dominant follicle and mature in future. So at this point of time, when the follicles they are maturing, they will be releasing what? Estrogen. The estrogen will go and act on FSH and LH and say, hey, please lower down your secretion. We do not want all this thing. This is what? Negative feedback. This is what? Negative feedback. You're telling something to lower down, which was in more amount. Now it is going back in again loop and saying, please lower it down. Fine. Now we'll read it first and then we'll go ahead. Okay. So the major events of the menstrual cycle are shown in figure. We'll see the figure. The cycle starts with the menstrual phase. What is the first phase that we have? Menstrual phase, where the menstruation is happening. When the menstrual flow occurs and it lasts for 3 to 5 days. So almost it lasts for 3 to 5 days. For some people it can go more also. The menstrual flow results due to breakdown of endometrial lining of the uterus. Now what is endometrial lining of the uterus? I already told you, if this is the uterus, children, if this is the uterus, there will be a very thickened lining over here. Okay. Now this thickened lining, it is the functional layer of what? Endometrium. What is it? It is the functional layer of endometrium. So below this, there is also one more layer. There is one more layer of the endometrium, which is known as what? The basal layer. Basal layer of endometrium itself. So basal layer is the one that helps in the formation of the functional layer, and the functional layer is the one that always shuts down. The basal remains there, the functional shuts down. So this is what is happening, and it so it results due to breakdown of endometrial lining, that is menstrual flow results due to breakdown of endometrial lining of the uterus and its blood vessels, which forms liquid that comes out through the vagina. So after this, obviously you have the vagina, so from there everything will be coming out. Menstruation only occurs if the released ovum is not fertilized. When will it happen? If the ovum which is being released, it is not fertilized, when the sperm does not come, at this point only it will happen. If by chance fertilization occurs, if you see the sperm and the egg, it fused, obviously it will result in what? Zygote. This zygote will form embryo. So for the embryo, it needs nourishment. So this particular layer is the one that provides nourishment during the initial phase. So can it shut down? Obviously no. So if the fusion happens, will it shut down? No, because it needs it, right? So lack of menstruation may be indicative of pregnancy. So if menstruation is not happening, okay, and the person is active in sexual intercourse, at this point of time, it could be indicative of pregnancy. because the fertilization could have happened, which is why menstrual flow is not happening, because the embryo might have formed. However, it may also be caused due to some other underlying causes like stress, poor health, etc. So I am a biology teacher and I am a female, which is why I am telling you there are so many reasons which could lead to what's a delay of the menstrual phase that you are seeing over here, delay of the menstruation that you are seeing over here. It could be stress, it could be the food that you are having, it could be the result of proper health that you are not probably maintaining. So all these things could result, or probably some other diseases like PCOD and lot of stuffs, yeah, that could also result in delay of what, the menstrual phase or the menstruation over here. I hope that is clear. Yeah, so this is what they have written and this is what we have studied. So we have studied a bit of extra thing, but let's see, going ahead, what do we have? So now, until now, the menstrual flow was there. What do you call this phase as? I have to write this name of the phase. I don't know why I didn't write. It is menstrual phase. Now children, I told when this is happening, the FSH and LH are in high amount. They tell the follicles, hey follicle grow, hey follicle grow, hey follicle grow. And now, since so many follicles are growing, obviously one has to be dominant. So basically these follicles releases what? Estrogen. What do they release? Estrogen. Now this estrogen will say, go and act on FSH as well as LH and say, please lower down the secretion. We have chosen what it is going to be the dominant follicle, and that dominant follicle will go ahead for the process. Okay, so this thing happens. Now as you can see over here, the estrogen, it is now slowly increasing because over here it was moderate, right? It was moderate and now it is slowly increasing because the follicles are being obviously getting matured. Now when the amount of estrogen increases, there is something else that happens. But I want you to stop here itself and listen to me carefully. Okay, this phase that you see over here from this point to this point is known as follicular phase, because at this point of time the follicles are very gradually, very energetically maturing. Okay, so over here you will be seeing so many follicles being maturing. So not so many follicles being maturing. You will see that the maturation phase will be too high, or maturation rate will be too high. The follicles will be growing and maturing really fast during the follicular phase. Now it is also known as proliferative phase. Why? Because the endometrial line that shut down is now slowly forming again. Why is this forming? It is forming because the estrogen said so. You remember, the estrogen is the one that goes and tells the uterus that you have to make the endometrium line. We studied it initially, right? So over here, one by one if you study, FSH was there, it make the follicles grow up. Now over here we have estrogen. Estrogen in moderate amounts goes and say, FSH please stop, please lower down your secretion. When it lower down your secretion, and over here the follicles are already being made, what happens? This estrogen, it will obviously, since follicles are made, the estrogen will be in more amount. If estrogen is in more amount, obviously it will go and tell the endometrium line, tell the uterus to form the endometrium lining over there. Now one more thing happens before all this thing, that is over here one certain granulosa cells which surrounds the oocyte, okay, the granulosa cells which surrounds the oocyte, it releases something which is known as inhibin. As the name suggests, it is going to inhibit the formation of gonadotropins, that is LH and FSH. It will say stop, we need to lower it down. So along with estrogen, what do we have? We have inhibin also saying that please FSH and LH, please lower down your secretion. So FSH is the one that is mostly secreting, LH also secretes, but it is comparatively less. Okay. Now all this thing happened and we completed the menstrual phase. Now we are coming into proliferative phase, but this is also happening. The chosen follicle is now maturing, it is going ahead, right? At this point of time there will be so much amount of estrogen being released. This estrogen which is being released leads to the formation of endometrium layer. Yeah, and now when the amount of estrogen is more, it is high, what happens during this time? Do they give a negative effect to FSH or LH, or do they give a positive effect? We studied it. Remember, I drew and I made you write over there, take a screenshot, I said, right? What happens when the estrogen is in high amount? It will give positive feedback to both LH and FSH. So at this point of time, it will give the feedback, and now, as you can see over here, the LH and FSH have a great shoot upwards. The amount will slowly, gradually increase over there. So let's talk about the next phase first, and then we will come to this thing. So it is not a menstrual phase. Menstrual phase is done, ma'am. So what is this phase all about? This is the next phase, which is follicular phase, or what do you call it? Proliferative phase, because here proliferation of the endometrium also happens. Now all these key details that I am telling you 10,000 times, they are very important, which is why I am repeating. Okay, it's not because I want to spend the time something like that. It's not like that. It's very, very important. Now the menstrual phase is followed by what? Follicular phase. Agree? During this phase, the primary follicles in the ovary, okay, grow to become a fully mature Graafian follicle. Now lots of them will be obviously trying to get matured, but with the help of inhibin and the estrogen, the follicle stimulating hormone will go down, which is why only one particular dominant follicle will go ahead with maturation and forming what? Graafian follicle. And simultaneously, what is happening? The endometrium of the uterus regenerates through proliferation, which is why it is known as proliferative phase as well. These changes in the ovary and the uterus are induced by changes in the levels of pituitary and ovarian hormones. Children, you have to tell me, what are the pituitary hormones over here that we have studied? It is FSH and LH. What are the ovarian hormones that we studied over here? Any guesses? Any guesses? Since it was not written anywhere. It is what? Estrogen and progesterone. So as of now, the role of progesterone is very less, but still I'll write it. Okay? Progesterone. Fine. The secretion of gonadotrophins LH and FSH increases gradually during the follicular phase and stimulates follicular development as well as the secretion of estrogens by the growing follicle. Both LH and FSH attain a peak level. So as of now, as I am saying, over here in the proliferative phase, they are increasing, okay, they are increasing, but simultaneously what is happening? The estrogen is also being released, which is why they are decreasing. They will be decreasing at one particular point of time. When the moderate amount of estrogen is being released, they will decrease at one particular point of time, and when the amount of estrogen will be too much, there will be a peak. We will see that. Okay, we will see that. So for that, I want you to read this. So both LH and FSH attain a peak level in the middle of the cycle. So at this point of time, when the estrogen, as you can see, it is also increasing in amount, it gives a positive feedback to FSH and LH, and now there is a peak. Now there is a huge peak. Over here you can see that the LH is ranging high. And what do you call this as? You call this as LH surge. What do you call? LH surge, as in it has increased in great amounts. Yeah. Now what happens during LH surge? LH surge happened. Now the Graafian follicles, it opens up, and what do we have? The secondary oocyte is being released. Okay, the secondary oocyte is being released. What is left back? What is left back? Only the granulosa cells and all the antrum and stuff like that. So basically, this is being left back. And what do you call this particular structure as? I told you always. I have told you in the oogenesis thing also. What is left back? What do you call this? You call this as corpus luteum. What do you call? You call this as corpus luteum. Now corpus luteum, my children, just imagine the egg is being released. Now normally our body will think, okay, egg is released, fertilization could happen. Now obviously endometrium layer should be more thick as it was over here, but it should be much more thicker than that, because any time fertilization could have happened. So obviously we need a preparation for it. Okay, so corpus luteum, poor corpus luteum, it releases two hormones, again progesterone and estrogen. So the progesterone, which was just like chumma messing around over here, at this point of time, which is being released by corpus luteum, now the amount gradually increases a lot. Okay, the progesterone, it increases a lot. In a way, what happens? This progesterone goes and says, hey, endometrium, please thicken yourself. Now, this is very important. So corpus luteum is a thing that maintains the endometrium lining. And why do we say that it maintains the endometrium lining? Because here it releases progesterone mainly, and this progesterone works on the endometrium layer, makes it very thickened. Along with that, the corpus luteum also releases estrogen, but again the effect of it or the amount of it is comparatively lesser, but I won't say it's nil. No, it's comparatively lesser. So here you can see it is also increasing. Estrogen is also increasing. So if you're not able to understand the graph thingy that I made over here, please try to understand what I'm trying to tell you at least. It will be easy for you. Don't need to think of a lot of things ahead. Okay. Now at this point of time, the progesterone is way too much. It is making the endometrium lining very thickened. Now since the progesterone is way too much, what happens? The LH, it goes and acts on LH and FSH and says, that is estrogen, both of them, they goes and act and tell, please lower down again. Now again it will lower down. Okay, again this thing lower down, and later what happens? You only tell. What will happen? When the estrogen also, okay, if it lowers down, if this lowers down, obviously the corpus luteum, okay, which was made by the LH over there, which was made with the help of LH, because LH surge happened, which is why the Graafian follicle moved around, moved open, and the second oocyte came out, right? So corpus luteum was formed. But now if the LH and the corpus luteum releases what? Progesterone. Progesterone gives a negative feedback effect, yeah, and now FSH and LH is less. Now if LH is less, what will happen? This corpus luteum will slowly die. Now if this corpus luteum slowly dies, what will happen? The amount of progesterone will also go down. If the amount of progesterone goes down, what will happen? The endometrium layer that they made together, it will also go. Estrogen will also obviously be down. Okay, and what will happen? The menstrual flow will happen again. So this is the whole cycle. We had one menstrual flow and then comes the another menstrual flow. This total thing is almost for 28 days. So I'll just try to make you understand things one more. We will have a overall discussion on it. So children, first thing, menstrual flow, with this time with date. Okay, so this is 1st of August. Just imagine like that. So on 1st of August, the menstrual flow started. It ended up to it and stayed there for 5 days. Okay, why did this happen? Because the progesterone and estrogen amount went low. So there was no one to maintain it, which is why it went down. Okay, now there is no one to stop the FSH and LH because they both are down. The FSH and LH obviously will be secreting and making the follicles what? Mature over here. Now this phase when the follicles are basically increasing, growing and maturing, it is known as follicular phase or proliferative phase. Okay, why follicular phase? Because FSH is acting on it, the amount of FSH is high. At this point of time, the follicles, the growing follicles are releasing what? Estrogen. Yeah, it is releasing estrogen. Now this estrogen will be acting on the endometrium layer and making back the endometrium layer from start. Yeah. Since estrogen is being released, the amount of FSH and LH quietly reduces a bit. But when the amount of estrogen is way too much, at this point of time, what will happen? There will be an LH surge or FSH. FSH will also increase, but mostly if it is about LH. Now, at this point of time, there will be LH surge, which will make the Graafian follicle release the secondary oocyte, right? Now, our body thinks that the secondary oocyte and the sperm will obviously come and fuse and form, basically the ovum and the sperm will fuse and fertilization will happen and then embryo will be forming, which is why our body will be ready with a very thickened layer of endometrium. So, for that, who is there? Graafian follicles, once it releases everything, what is left back? What do you call this structure as? You call this as corpus luteum. This corpus luteum is responsible for progesterone as well as estrogen secretion, but mainly progesterone. This progesterone will act on the pre-existing endometrium layer and make it more thickened, more glandular, more secretory, everything possible. And estrogen will also be there, which will also help in maintaining this. But now the progesterone and estrogen, basically, they go on and act on FSH and LH and they say stop. You increased, but now stop. So basically when this goes down, when the LH and FSH go down, the corpus luteum also slowly dies, because this was the one that was responsible for the corpus luteum, right? Now if the corpus luteum dies off, what will happen? the corpus luteum was the one that makes progesterone, it will also lower down its secretion. Now once it lowers down its secretion, obviously the endometrium layer will also flow off. So on the 28th day, the next menstrual cycle begins off. Okay, and now if you are asked on which day actually the ovulation happens, I will tell you, it is on the 14th day. So will you calculate like this, 1 to 14th? So 1st August plus 14 days, if we calculate, it is not on the 14th day like that. You have to go from there, because this is permanent. This thing that you see is permanent. This phase, that is the luteal phase, has a proper time period. This can vary. This phase, that is the follicular phase and the proliferative phase, it can vary, but this remains the same. So why it is known as luteal phase? Because the luteinizing hormone is making corpus luteum, which is why it is known as luteal phase. Okay, and why is it known as secretory phase? But because at this point of time, your endometrium will be showing secretory function. It will be giving out glycogen. This glycogen could be a food resource for the growing embryo, if the growing embryo actually is there. Okay, so basically this will definitely happen, and it stays for almost 7 days. Okay, and this phase is almost there for 13 to 14 days. So if you want to see the 14th day, you go from here rather than coming from here, because this time period varies, but this is permanent. So over here on the 14th day, okay, ovulation will be happening. Fine, I hope that this particular thing is now clear to you, and I hope that I am not missing on anything. Secretory phase, why? Because again I am telling you, the endometrium will show secretory function. It will form glycogen and things like that, so that if the embryo is formed, it can provide nutrition to that. Okay, and this phase, the luteal phase, goes up to 13 to 14 days. Okay, so in NEET question, somewhere it gave 13 as an option, and somewhere it gave 14 as an option. So I say 13 and 14. Okay, and the corpus luteum sustains for almost, what say, some particular days, that is 7 days, double 2 weeks. Okay, it stays for 2 weeks, that is 14 days. Sorry. I hope clear. That is clear. Okay, now let's read the luteal phase. So both LH and FSH attain a peak level in the middle of the cycle about the 14th day. Rapid secretion of LH leading to its maximum level during the mid-cycle, called LH surge, induces rupture of Graafian follicle. It ruptures, and thereby it releases the ovum, which is known as ovulation. This process is known as ovulation. The ovulation or the ovulatory phase is followed by the luteal phase. So in between the follicular phase and the luteal phase, there is some phase which is known as ovulatory phase, where the ovulation is happening. Okay, yes, followed by the luteal phase, during which the remaining parts of the Graafian follicle transforms as corpus luteum. And what happens to the corpus luteum? Corpus luteum secretes large amounts of progesterone, which is essential for maintenance of what? Endometrium. So it is helping in maintaining endometrium, it is helping in thickening it. Such an endometrium is necessary for implantation of the fertilized ovum. Implantation as in, if the ovum, fertilized ovum, comes and gets embedded in the endometrium, it is known as implantation. And the other events of pregnancy. During pregnancy, all events of the menstrual cycle stop, and there is no menstruation. If pregnancy is happening, as I said, obviously this particular endometrium layer that is being there, it will be used up for nourishment. So menstrual flow won't be happening. The level of progesterone, everything will be maintained. Okay. Now, in the absence of fertilization, the corpus luteum degenerates. So once it realizes, oh, this time also fertilization does not happen, what will happen? Slowly it will degenerate. So this is the thing that I was saying. That is, it will be sustaining for 1 to 7 days, the corpus luteum, and later it will be getting degenerated. Almost the whole thing takes 14 days. Okay. Now, this causes disintegration. Now, if the corpus luteum is not there, obviously, what won't be there? Progesterone would be there. If progesterone and estrogen is not there, endometrium will be not there. This will lead to menstruation. In the human being's menstrual cycle ceases around 50 years of age, because by this particular time, that is 50 or 40 years, okay, the number of follicles which were there. So lots of them, when I say the 10 follicles were affected by the FSH, all of them were trying to get matured, but when only one is selected, the other ones degenerate. So at this point only you lose so many follicles, which is why we say that normally we say 30 is a good age for getting pregnant. Why? Because the amount of follicles could be enough. When you age further, the amount of follicles will be very less. So depending upon the food and whatever habits you are having, it also have a huge impact on your reproductive cycle as well. So this is one thing. Now cyclic menstruation is an indicator of normal reproductive phase and extends between menarche and menopause. So everything that you see over here starts from menarche and ends up in menopause. I hope this is clear to you, and this is the picture that is given in your NCERT book. So first is menstruation that you see over here, okay, then comes the follicular phase or proliferative phase, then comes the luteal phase or secretory phase. In between them, what do you have? Ovulatory phase, where the ovulation is happening, okay, ovulatory phase, and then the next cycle it begins. So over here, as you can see, developing follicle, it grows slowly, matures, yeah. So FSH, it was high, but it gets low a bit. Why? Because this particular follicles, they are releasing estrogen. So as you see, estrogen over here in moderate amount, it will make the FSH lower. But then when the amount of estrogen becomes really high during when the follicles are maturing, at this point of time, when the estrogen is high, it will make the LH and FSH spike up. Now when the FSH and LH, they spike up, what will happen? The ovulation will happen. The LH when it spike up, ovulation will happen. And now what we have? We have the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum, when it comes, what happens? Progesterone now increases. Estrogen could get less, okay, because the amount of FSH and LH were going high. At this point of time, estrogen could get less, but as you see, progesterone is going high, and then it is making the endometrial line also thicken very much. But with time, what happens? This guy is saying stop down. So when it stops down, the FSH and LH, what will happen? The corpus luteum also, it will also start disintegrating. Now when the corpus luteum disintegrates, obviously the the progesterone and estrogen goes down. Again the menstrual flow will happen. So this is the whole cycle, as you can see over here. So what are the ovarian hormones? Estrogen and progesterone. What are the gonadotropins? FSH and LH. Now let's see few questions of the same as well. So this time I am doing all the questions towards the end because the concept is being cleared. I didn't have any question to give in between. So yes, let's see the 5 questions that I gave you. Let's see if you were able to do that. Which of the following hormones levels will cause the release of ovulation from the Graafian follicle? Which of the following hormone will lead to what? Ovulation, that is the question. So high concentration of estrogen, okay, high concentration of progesterone, low concentration of LH and low concentration of FSH. So I am pretty sure about one thing, that ovulation happens when the concentration of LH is high. Now if that is not an option that is given over here, then I will choose the next thing. What causes the increase of LH? It is estrogen. So it will be what? High concentration of estrogen. That came in NEET 2020. Okay. Going ahead, no new follicles develop in the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle because in the luteal phase, what is the luteal phase? The third phase, the last phase. Okay. So no new follicles are being developing during this particular phase. So first thing that you should be knowing is that follicles, to grow them, what do we need? We need FSH and mostly LH as well. So let's see. Follicles do not remain in the ovary after ovulation. If that was the case, then probably there was no reproductive cycle which could go up to menopause. Okay, so obviously follicles do remain. Okay, some of it they die. Now FSH levels are high in the luteal phase. No new follicles develop in the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle because FSH levels are high. Obviously, if FSH level was high, then probably follicles would have generated follicle stimulating hormones, right? So this is also wrong. LH levels are high in the luteal phase. Again, no, big no. Both FSH and LH levels are low in the luteal phase. Yes, this is the thing. Both of them are required for follicle generation, mainly FSH. So this should be the correct answer. So it came in NEET 2019. I hope you did it. Now, you might be thinking that questions which were so tough is not so easy. Why? Because you studied children. Now, match the items given in column 1 with those in column 2 and select the correct options given below. Okay. Proliferative phase could match to what phase over here? So, the first phase that we have is menstrual phase. Second is proliferative phase. Why? The endometrium is proliferating. But when the endometrium is proliferating, it is because the follicles are developing and the follicles are releasing estrogen. So obviously it has linked to follicular phase. Secretory phase. Secretory phase, I told, endometrium becomes secretory. It secretes glycogen, right? This happens due to release of what? Progesterone, and progesterone is being made in the luteal phase because of corpus luteum. So this is the thing. Okay. Now menstruation is what? Breakdown of the endometrial lining. This is the easiest thing. Okay. So A should be with 2. Let's see. A is with 2. No. This is the option. A is with 2. B is with 3. Okay. And C is with 1. Ta-da! We got NEET 2018 answer as well. Okay. Menstrual flow occurs due to lack of. Tell me. Options: oxytocin, vasopressin, progesterone, FSH. If the question was follicles are not found due to the lack of, then probably it would have been FSH. So these options you do not even know, but this is something that you already know, and this is something that you already know. With this information only you can get marks. You get that idea that at least you should have some information, so that for you to get marks it becomes really easy. So have the smart way of studying. The answer is this: progesterone. When the progesterone and estrogen level goes down, that's when the menstrual flow occurs. About which day in a normal human menstrual cycle does rapid secretion of LH, popularly called LH surge, normally occurs? Tell me which day. It's the midpoint, right? And it's the 14th day. As I always say, it's the 14th day. There should not be any confusion. Some place it might be 13th day, but if 14th is mentioned, please go for 14th, no, not for 13th. Okay. Now, there should be one question for my champions, which is related to this particular topic. So this is the question that we have. If mammalian ovum fails to get fertilized, which one of the following is unlikely? I'll repeat the question. If the ovum fails to get fertilized, fertilization is not happening, which of the things are not going to occur? That is the question. Okay. Now these are the options that you have. You can solve it down in the comment box and I'll choose one among you for sure, because I think this question is kind of tricky with the language that it has, but the answer is kind of very simple. So if you're liking this particular series that we are trying to do for you, if you think that it is fruitful, what do you have to do? You have to comment down. And now one very important thing that I want to tell you is, what all did we cover until now? Male reproductive system, spermatogenesis, female reproductive system, and oogenesis as well. So if you have not watched those videos, please go and watch. We'll put down the links in the description videos. You will get a short track. Now you only think in this particular video you got so much amount of information, you were able to solve the 5 questions. I could have given you more, but I don't want to increase the length of the duration of the class, because it will be, you need to study other subjects also, I understand. So it will be really useful if you go and watch those videos as well. Okay, and also do not forget to subscribe to our channel, and also join the WhatsApp channel. Okay, why? Because WhatsApp group, because you will get all the updates regarding the PDF. Okay, all the updates regarding the classes, and also the PDF for this particular class. So whatever I made, whatever I wrote, okay, everything will be included there. You can just have the PDF what all things we made. You can just have a clear-cut idea of it. You can see through the questions once more if you want. So all these type of things could be done, right? So that's all for today, children. I hope that you are not panicking around. You're just happy, just be calm. You're going to ace the exams. I'm pretty sure about that. I am going to be with you. That's my promise. Yeah. So bye bye. Take care.